that was intense. Hello, bakers. So this is a start to finish video on French bread using the sponge method, but we're going to focus, as far as conversation goes, on the shaping of the bread. So we mix to develop gluten. This is me checking the gluten, and it doesn't look like there's that much. So we continue to mix. This video is sped up, so up until now I'm only speed 1 on the 10-speed mixer. This is actually speed 3 of a 10-speed mixer, checking the window pane again. So I always like to rip it off, give it a roll, and then slowly start to stretch it out. So the more we mix, the more gluten is developed, and yes, you can overmix the dough. If you mix it for too long or too fast of a speed, the gluten strands actually start to rip and tear. We're making sure we're always wrapped while resting. Bulk fermentation looks good. Punching it down, and then we're about ready to start the rolls. We want to make sure we always cut the dough, never tear. So this is a first look at how to create tension. You can see that I'm just kind of shoving it through my little fingers, pushing it up, but causing the tension on the top. Creating tension is rolling with a purpose. So you can see kind of the top of the dough is going down through the sides to the bottom, and each time we achieve more tension on top. This is the start of what the rolling looks like. So there are different ways to achieve the tension on the finished bread, whether it's rolls, whether it's loaves, or what. But it's important to achieve this tension because as the dough ferments, as it proofs, that formed gluten allows the expansion of the gases. When the yeast ferments, it traps it in, so it helps keep the final shape of the bread or the dough. So really, bread is all about manipulating this gluten, right? We want to achieve it properly through mixing, not for too long of a time or not too fast. And then as we shape the dough, we want to form this gluten because the gluten is responsible for everything. In this part of the video, you can see I've got a larger roll, and I'm just slowly rounding that, and with each pass it's becoming a little bit more taut. Remember the statement on A, can I overmix the dough? And my answer was, why, yes you can. Just like being able to overmix the dough in a mixer, we can also do that by hand, rolling it into whatever shapes. In this roll, it looks like everything is going to be beautiful. But when I keep on mixing and go a little too aggressively, you can see the tearing that starts to happen. That gluten is like a rubber band. If you pull it too far, it's going to start to break. And even though it doesn't look too much different now, it's really going to affect the final presentation of the dough. So now this is me shaping a baguette. This is not that same dough that was overworked with the stretched gluten. So I've got my little disc of dough, and then I want to fold it over, creating that tension to the middle. Make sure I push it down nicely, and then I'll fold it the rest of the way using the palm of my hand, the heel. And what that's going to do is seal that seam together. A little flour is beneficial, but yeah, I want to make sure that I get good connection so the dough can grip the table. And then as I'm rolling it with my fingers, I'm tucking that in, and then my thumbs, I'm tucking it the other way again, just really trying to create that tension on top. When it comes to scoring, we can use a serrated knife like I'm doing now. Just note that it's kind of dragging the dough, ripping and tearing instead of getting a clean slice. The next one, I'll use a flat edge. So I have 4 doughs. This one is the overworked torn gluten. And you can see there's a difference in just the look. It's flatter, and it shows how important taking care of the gluten actually is. So after it comes out of the oven, this first one is the torn gluten. Excuse my lack of focusing. These 3 have a nice look to them, a nice size, a nice shape. And then cut open on the insides. This is everything else. Let's get that tension, bakers.